Hey, Rebels. Are your walls boring? Well, listen up, because today's episode is being brought to you by The Gallery. It's based out of New York, and The Gallery is a curated collection of photographs from around the world. You know, we're all unable to travel right now, so this is a great way to bring a piece of the world to you. And all prints are made from 100% recycled aluminum, giving your wall that gallery finish. And right now, The Gallery is offering our listeners, that's you guys, Rebels of the Sherpalution, 15% off their purchase by using the code 15OFF. Go to thegallery.com. That's TheGallery.com. And your walls will never be boring again. Let's head back to the show.
How does my 5-day beard look? Do I look like Joe Finfera?
You can't grow a beard. You're a voiceover bot. And that's not a beard, it's chocolate syrup.
How did you know it was chocolate syrup?
The label stuck to your face is a dead giveaway.
Attention, Rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is being brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, please don't disturb the yak.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podcastia, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa screening room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels, and welcome to the Sherpa Screening Room. It's me, your favorite babbling idiot, Jim, the podcast Sherpa. Hi, I made it. And we are here on the last day of Faces to Watch week. And I hope that you've heard the first two episodes with Jean-Pierre Giannoli and Patrick Harney. And today we've got a guy named Joe Finfera, and he's been in a lot of stuff. And he's got a really interesting career. He started out young as a fitness model, got into acting, took a little time off to raise his son, and then came back to acting and got a whole bunch more acting jobs. You know, he's good if they want him back, right? Let's take a listen to my conversation with Joe. Hello, Rebels. We are here coming to you from the conference room at the Sherpa Chalet. And my guest tonight is an actor, and he's done a lot of short films. He's done movies. He's done TV and played a whole different bunch of parts, too. And there's a couple of weird questions I have for you later on, too, that I got to see if my research was correct. His name is Joe Finfera. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What we usually like to do in these shows is if you could kind of let us get to know you a little bit. How'd you start out?
I would say the way it started was my grandfather was in entertainment. And growing up, my grandfather, we would have these get-togethers once a week. And my grandfather would bring an instrument, and we'd have these songs and we'd sing, and he could play piano, guitar, banjo, bass, violin. Yeah, he played so many darn instruments. And so we always sang these songs. So we had kind of I had an artistic upbringing. And my grandfather, when he was younger, he came out to California and he did like an episode of Three Stooges. So he was out here and he would tell me about it. He wasn't here very long. I think he only came out for about 6 months. And we'd always ask him about it. And he was a singer too, so he had an opportunity to go on tour. He was asked to go on tour with Bob Hope when Bob Hope would do the USO tours. And he didn't do it because my grandmother was pregnant with my mother. And he always had this look like, oh man, I wish I was propelled by that look of regret in his face. And I think that's where where it was started, where the foundation started, was from my grandfather. And he was heavily into music. He still did music, even when in the Baltimore area. And back in the day, Tex Ritter used to tour. And when Tex Ritter would come to town, he would actually play that in them. And he did some sheet music. And so he always sang. So we had that part, and that's where it kind of started. As I got older, I remember I still had the itch. And then when I finished college, this girl I was dating at the time used to watch soap operas all the time. And I remember I couldn't take it. And then we ended up breaking up. And then I decided, I finished college, I broke up. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to move to New York. And I decided to move to New York City. And I moved to New York City right after college. I was into fitness and stuff like that. In fact, I did a little bit of competing back in the day too. Part of my influences were, when you're a kid, the big show was Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. So I used to watch, I watched Incredible Hulk, and I started working out young. And I thought, maybe if I start working out, I think I was in like 5th grade. And I remember, if I start working out now, I could be like Lou. And that's when I got into doing that stuff. So I worked out all the time. And by the time I finished college, I decided I wanted to start competing. And I actually competed in the Mr. Maryland. And I ended up, my first time out, I got 3rd in the Maryland. And then the following year, I ended up getting 1st in the short division for Mr. Maryland. And that kind of started my quest to go out. And then I started doing fitness books and fitness modeling. But I had an opportunity. I moved to New York City, and I started doing things in New York. And I figured I was really big in the fitness stuff. So I used that as a leverage to get on some shows. And so I started marketing myself with some of my fitness stuff I did. Ironically, I had a chance to go to California back in the early 90s. And I had this photo shoot. And I ended up making the cover of a calendar, and that was sold all over the country. And so that kind of gave me a good running start because it gave me some PR. I ended up making the cover of this calendar. It was national, and it was in malls all over the U.S. In fact, before I was headed to New York, I was kind of worried. I was a little bit nervous, like, oh my gosh, am I making the right decision? I mean, you can't really make too many wrong decisions when you're young like that. But me, at the time, I was so worried about it. But I was wondering, what am I doing? Ironically, the craziest thing, my parents were walking through the mall. My mother, father, and my youngest brother were walking through the mall in Maryland, a place called White Marsh Mall. It's a conservative area. So they look down, and my youngest brother looks, and in the window in the mall is this guy, and he looked down, and he's in shape, and looked down, and he sees his name, or his last name, and he sees my name. He's like, oh, that's Joe. And they never told me that I made the cover of this calendar. And so they came home to me, and I was like maybe 2 days away from leaving and moving to New York City. And I get a knock on my bedroom door. I opened the door, and my dad had the calendar in front of my face. And it was like the scene party. And I'm like, wow, I'm making the right decision. That was kind of like my calling card. I used that as my business card to get on some TV shows. And so this calendar, I shot it in California. It was in every mall all throughout the country. I never really knew until my brother found it. And it kind of like set everything in pace. And whenever near pushing for something, you're always kind of like, I remember being there, I was always kind of like worried, am I making the right decision? But I had made the cover of that calendar, it made me feel like I'm doing the right thing. And so that really was such a big impact for me. And I used that to get on episodes of One Life to Live. And I started getting my information to photographers that would shoot for magazines. And I started working on exercise for men, men's workout. I ended up even getting an ad thing. I was in an ad, an Esquire magazine. So it really just propelled me. So I was tons of fitness magazines. I ended up getting in a fitness book, and it just propelled me. Then I got to the point where I wanted to not just do the fitness stuff. I wanted to do more, because when you're just promoting yourself, you don't really make as much money. So then I learned the art of advertising, and which is kind of, I do a little bit of that now, a lot of that now actually. And I end up booking a Nike ad, and I realized, wow, when I'm promoting a product other than myself, I make a hell of a lot more money. And so I ended up doing a Nike ad, and it was very, very well. So that's kind of where it actually started. And it was pretty lucrative for a while. I did tons of commercials. Again, fitness magazines. I did theater. I did the soap stuff. And the first soap, the one I wanted to get on was Guiding Lights. My grandmother used to watch. It was a television. It was a radio show back in the day. And I remember, I would say I'm not a holy roller, but I grew up religious. I remember I would pray, like I would go to St. Patrick's and pray for lines on the show. Please let them give me lines on the soap. And I would pray and pray and pray. And craziest thing is, it's sad, it's crazy too. But I was in St. Patrick's one day, And I looked back, and behind me, 2 pews, was Chris Farley. And Chris Farley from Saturday Night Live was in there praying too. Yeah, and it was crazy. And I saw him in there a couple times. And I used to see him at a fitness center called Prescriptive Fitness Center. But I remember after that, a couple of days later, I ended up getting my first lines on a soap on Guiding Light. And I was just thrilled to death. So prayer does work. So I did that, and I stayed pretty busy. And I was in New York City for about 9 years doing some stuff, but not that level. I always wanted to go to California. But as I said earlier, my grandfather, he was the one that kind of started the spark. But what he told me was, don't go to California until somebody calls you, until you get a call, because it's too lonely. Because he had only been in California for about 6 months. And so to him, it was very lonely. And so I feared that. I was always scared of California. It just stuck in my mind. So I waited for a call for 9 years. And I would submit myself on stuff and just try to get there any way I could. And then finally, after 9 years, I ended up getting a call from a buddy. He said, hey, I'm working on a show. My fiance is working on a show. It's time for you to come out. You should come out. And I thought, wow, it was miraculous. There's a sea party again, the second time the sea party. And I was like, this is what I was waiting for 9 years. I packed my bags within, I would say, 4 days of being in New York City for 9 years, living in the same place. I packed my bags and I left, and I headed to California here. And I was lucky enough to end up doing 3 guest starring roles on a sitcom called Jesse on NBC, which was great. And I did a part independent film that Schwimmer produced called Humanoid, and did stuff like that. So I did that, and everything was wonderful for a while. And then all the money that from the sitcom I was working on went to Friends. Everybody knows the show Friends.
Sure.
And it was kind of quiet for a while. And then I ended up meeting a woman. We ended up having a child. And I had a beautiful baby boy. And then things kind of changed. And I kind of went on a long hiatus. I would still do things periodically, but it was more about raising my children and having stability and things like that. So the real kind of story is where I am now. I took a long hiatus, and my son now is in college. He goes to University of the Pacific up north in the Stockton area. But after such a long hiatus, I was working in marketing, kind of a business job. I'm a VP of sales and marketing. I have a co-VP that I work with, who's a writer. And for the past, I would say 6 years, we were egging each other on and saying, we need to finish what we started. I decided to go back to finish where I started when I was younger. And, I'm happy that I raised my children, and they're older now, but it gave me that freedom now to finish what I started. And really right back in the gate after, I would say, a 16-year hiatus, I ended up getting a nice little part on doing an episode on General Hospital, where I play a guy who makes phony passports. I was on cloud 9 because I'm in an office for 15 years, every day still, it never leaves you, working in the entertainment field, it never leaves you. To be right back in it is it's a dream come true. It was so wonderful. And it was only an episode, but that episode meant so much. And then I kept, moving on to doing other things. And I did some short films. I got really lucky in the past. I guess it just aired about less than a year ago, about 6 or 7 months ago. Was I got a part on a Lifetime TV series called Crazy Love, where I play a high school guidance counselor. And so I'm on cloud 9 as a supporting role, and I'm working on a Lifetime show. Again, I still do my marketing stuff, but to go from the business thing to Hollywood sets and stuff, it's I can't tell you what a great feeling it is. And there's no ego in it at this point, because it's just about finishing what you started and saying, I'm going to do it, and then taking that time and saying, not just saying it, but really like Nike, just do it, and believing that it's still possible. And so I guess, what leads me now is my buddy who we're co-managers or co-VPs. He's a writer. And I told him, I said, you're writing stuff. And he's written stuff for the Hallmark Channel. And I said, the real story is our story. It's guys that are in their 50s saying, we're going to finish what we started. So I think what I want to share with people out there that are writers or directors or film producers, or if they want to open a business and they just never did, for whatever reason, that it's never too late. And whatever you have in there, you can fill in the gap and make it happen. And by just saying, I'm going to do it and believing it's possible. So that's one of the big things I think I want to share. But, one of the things I've learned from the business world is really how to treat the entertainment industry like a business. And it's a different world now than it was back in the 90s. So back in the 90s, we didn't have all these things like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, all these vehicles. So there's so much stuff available and so much available for people and so much available for writers. It's just a great opportunity, and I'm maximizing on that. And, and I can take my life experiences with the experiences I had when I was younger, and I'm more marketable, more castable than I was when I was younger. So, some of the recent stuff I've done is, I was just cast too. It just aired about 3 weeks ago on ID Discovery. Is a show called Betrayed, and it's produced by the producers of House of Cards. So it's a pretty well-known show. I play a detective, and again, I just know when I'm driving to the set, it's like, wow, I'm doing what I came here to do. And it's fun because I've been pushing this stuff for 30 years. And sometimes you hear from people and they're like, what can you do? And I'm like, work on it for 30 years and then you'll start getting stuff. But it's nice because my wheels are getting traction. They're sticking to the road. And then I know, and as you get older, you know the ingredients. And the ingredients is just sticking to it and working hard, working on doing good and not just getting by, but really when you work on a script or you're working on learning something, that you work on it and work on it to be the best, to really know it and take that extra step, extra leap and work extra hard. And that's really made the difference for me too. It's a little bit easier being older than when I was in my 20s, because there's so many people that look exactly like me when I was 20 something, which makes it difficult. When I was in high school, one of the coaches, he was a really inspirational coach, gave me something in high school. And I still have it to this day. And I look at it all the time. Let me grab it real quick. I'm going to read it because that is what really started everything. And it's been something I look at all the time and I remember it. Here it is. So this was given to me by a high school coach. I was his, back in the day in Maryland, when you're a senior, you help out a teacher, become a teacher's aide. This guy was a really cool dude. And I was his, the teacher's assistant. And you can do that when you're seniors. So part of the kind of cool things. But he gave me this, and it said, and literally I followed it, and I run into him years later, and I said, I always look at what you gave me. I still have it from high school. So this is 1986. It's 2020. So anybody out there, when you see somebody young and you want to give them something, don't think that they're not listening or they're not holding on to it because they are. You never know. So I know I have to pay this forward, so I try to. But this thing, it says, think positive. If you think you're beaten, you are. If you dare not, you don't. Success begins with your own will. It's all in your state of mind. Life's battles are not always won by those who are stronger or faster. Sooner or later, the person who wins is the person who thinks he can. So I've literally, in all walks of my life, I've kept that. So whatever I've been working on, I know you don't always have to be the best person, but you have to believe that you're good enough and that you can still do it. And that's it. Just thinking positive. So the key is think positive. And I've kept that. It's 1986 and it's in my office. And I look at it all the time. So that's my thing. So I've been very blessed and fortunate, but I'm capitalizing on those things as well. So
now, your first TV program that you were in was an MTV show called "You Wrote It, You Watch It."
Yes, it was. It was the coolest thing, and it was a show called "You Wrote It, You Watch It." It was produced by MTV back in the very, very beginning. It was hosted by Jon Stewart. And I actually, if you go to YouTube, you just type in Joe Finfera YouTube or Joe Finfera, you watch it. You'll see that episode with Jon Stewart on it. Back in the day, we looked so darn young. And people would send in these skits and then we would act them out. And we could improv, we could do stuff like that. It was great. So I think I did about 4 episodes of the show. And it was on for about a year or so, year and a half. And it was MTV back in the day. Yes, that was really cool, really darn cool. But yes, I have it on YouTube. If you check it out, you can see it. Yeah.
You must be a busy man because I see on your IMDb page you have like 5 projects that are still waiting to come out. We've got the 13th Round.
13th Round is from Peter Bollinger. 13th Round's a cool film. I play a doctor. This is a true story. It's about a boxer. He lost his kidney, and he was boxing with one kidney, and then that kidney went bad, and then his brother donated his kidney to him, and he was a boxer, and he went and didn't quit boxing even with his donated kidney. And so the film was about that. And he ended up getting his first pro fight with one kidney that was donated by his brother. And it's a great story. And I play the doctor who removes his kidney and does the transplant stuff. So it's not out yet. You know how things are. You can do projects in Hollywood but that's the premise of it. So that's really a cool story. And the real guy was working on the film with me on that. So it's a really cool story. So, and you see, which other ones you look at too? What, Suicide by Cop? Suicide by Cop, that should be hitting. And the cool thing about that is that actually stars Vernon Wells. And Vernon Wells is the Mohawk guy from Mad Max with Mel Gibson. And he's starring in this movie called Suicide by Cop. And I have an awesome scene with him in this. That should be hitting Amazon or so within the next year or so. So let's keep our fingers crossed on that. So that's cool. It's also from the same producers of the 13th Round. So did you see Alienated on there too? Alienated.
That was going to be my next one. Yeah.
That we probably would have had the premiere for that, but that should be hitting relatively soon. In fact, I probably need to give him a call and see where that's going to air. But that's pretty cool because that was written and produced by a fellow by the name of Daryl Anka. And Daryl Anka, he channels somebody named Bashard. So if you ever look up Daryl Anka and Bashard, this guy is world renowned as a channeler. And I know somebody, and he's doing this alien type show, this alien film. And I watch his stuff, and he's got millions of followers, and he channels he channels somebody named Bashard. It's the coolest thing in the world. So he's done a lot of different stuff. So that should be coming out, and that you can I guess follow that on. I'll probably post something when that's going to air. But you can look up Daryl Anka, Anka, who channels Bashard on YouTube. Cool. That guy's really interesting cat. So you'll learn some interesting stuff if you're into that. Okay. I'm really into that, that raw, connected, positive energy. I believe in what goes around comes around. And I never got into, let's say, tiding, but then I realized this young man did, and I realized how there's a flow. And I really think our world was created with these laws, like a science. It's like you always said, everything's mathematics. I think things were put in place years ago to make everything evolve and work. And whenever you give away or give, it comes back to you. And so I've been doing that for years. And I'm telling you, it's changed my life. But when you give, it comes back. And so I'm really into that vibe thing. And I'm also into being positive as possible. I know in my life when I was through times where I didn't feel so positive that I almost shut off anything from happening, whether it's a hocus pocus or you're just walking around and people can feel your energy and you just don't, you're not giving off good vibes. But I do know that is not a way that we should be. And so no matter what you're doing, try to have a paradigm shift and keep yourself as positive as possible. And I know that's hard because our mind is the hardest thing to fight, but always look and try to find something that's positive and look towards the good in something that bad. And anybody that really knows me, they'll tell you, I always try to find, there's moments where I get irritated, but in order for me to come off that ladder, I try to find a positive in it. And so that's what I recommend to people. So yeah, but that guy is that kind of person. So I was really excited to work with him, and he had no idea that I knew him. And I didn't say anything until I was done filming. And then I said, I'm a fan. And he couldn't believe it that I was a fan.
Could you also tell me about Shadow Boxer?
It should be hitting soon. It's also by the same fellow. I'll give you guys names. His name's Peter Bollinger, Bollinger. That is going to be a guy to look out for. I can't really get into it too much, but it's another boxing type thing. It's a true type story, and it's immense. And I'm hoping that will end up coming out in 220, 221 as well. I play another doctor. Peter likes to hire me as a doctor, which is interesting. But I'm usually, which I'm happy about because I don't always want to play the mob guy. So if you're going to ask me to play a doctor, I'm thrilled, you know. I even contacted General Hospital and say, hey, I can play a doctor too. If you want to play a doctor too, I don't have to play a mob guy only. So Peter Bollinger, he's written, I don't know, well, he wrote a book or helped publish a book called Black Klansman. It was purchased and it was turned into a feature film. So Peter Bollinger, he's a brilliant man. And the crazy thing is I auditioned for a film called Blue Lives Matter. I auditioned for that when I had to do a monologue for this. And I actually did a monologue that was called I Never Sang for My Father by Gene Hackman. And who does a monologue by Gene Hackman? Nobody, but an older guy is 51. Because anybody older, when they're like, Gene Hackman, whoa, yes, you know, nobody's doing Gene Hackman, but he had a film called I Never Sang for My Father. And it's such a great movie. If when you're older, if you have older parents, I suggest anybody to watch it. It may be on Netflix or find a way to rent it. But I Never Sang for My Father, Gene Hackman. But I did a monologue for him. I did the monologue, and we looked at each other as if we knew each other. And he's put me in probably 4 of his films since then. We're like really good buddies. We're like old Padres. He's about 4 years older than me, and he's a retired police officer. And so he's like me, where we're like, he's got this passion, and he's producing films, and he's doing a great job. And he's getting these people in these films, and he's getting noticed, and he's got big people who have purchased his ideas that won Academy Awards. So let me tell you, Peter Bollinger is the guy to watch. But so I was blessed, and sometimes it's one of those things when you meet somebody and you think, wow, I think I know you, but we've never met before, but we developed a great friendship, and he keeps putting me in his film. So I'm absolutely grateful. In fact, I did one film for him, which is on Amazon right now, and it's called The Opiate Diaries. The Opiate Diaries it's a film. It's almost a little bit documentary style too, but it is a film. And it really gets into the opioid addiction and the epidemic that's going on in America today. And such a important meaning there where it could help somebody. It could help somebody young and where they make a different choice to maybe not take like Vicodin for pain and do something else. And just realize, and it goes and talks about how dangerous it really is to even get started, even if you hurt yourself. Just be really careful. So I recommend young kids, later high school years, to young adults or anybody watching that to really understand how dangerous the opioid epidemic is. And you could just be a regular old Joe and it could happen to you. And so that's how dangerous it is. So even, and it gets into that. So I'm really proud of that in the message. I was talking to someone the other day, and the old thing is this: if I can help one person, so my thing is if I can help 3 people, if I can change 3 people, change their lives, then I've done something. But that film could potentially change a lot of lives if they see it and understand how dangerous opioids can be. And I played the opioid doctor. Again, I play doctor again, but that's on Amazon right now. So, but watch that if you know anybody that has ever had an opioid addiction. But it really affects us. They say wherever you work, there's someone in there that probably has an opioid addiction. You don't know about it. There's a neighbor, family member. We all have somebody that's close to us that is addicted to opioids. It is such a huge epidemic. And so that's something I'm glad to be a part of that could probably change somebody and make a difference.
I'd want to encourage the listeners to check you out in something that you did a couple of years ago called Things Buried. And it's,
yes,
you can see
please do that.
Yes. On YouTube. Yes. And it's only like about 13 minutes long, but it is an intense drama. And Joe is, I don't want to give too much away because it's a short movie, but Joe is a guy whose past kind of catches up with him, and you see how he reacts to it, and it gets really intense.
Thank you. I'm very proud of that short. It's a short film. I'm proud of it. I love it. I'm glad you watched it. Thank you. Yeah, that is on YouTube. Just type in Joe Finfera, Things Buried, and the whole short's in there. Budget for bigger films. And sometimes you never know who's doing that short film. I did a short film with the fella who also just wrote a Matthew McConaughey movie that Matthew McConaughey starred in. So you never know who's working on a short film. So yeah, I'm glad you saw that. Things Buried, watch that. I also did another short film that I'm really proud of too. It was last year. It was called Unspoken. Look up Joe Finfera in Unspoken. I play a kind of a world champion boxer who's older and retired, and I have a son, and I have some health conditions, and I have a son who wants to kind of do what I was doing, and it gets into that, and it's about the love of a father and son. In fact, the young man who produced this and wrote it contacted me, and I being back into the entertainment industry really hard like I am now, I'm a little bit more choosy what I do. So this young man contacted me, and he's like, I want to try to win an award. And he wrote this, and it's about fathers and sons. And, I have a young son too. My son's 18. So I'm really into the relationships between fathers and sons and how important that is. So the movie it's a short film also called Unspoken. It's about fathers and sons. And I encourage people to go on my YouTube channel and watch that. I'll just type in Joe Finfera Unspoken. And believe me, it's so important because the biggest thing I'm proud of is being a father, and not just being a father, but being a present father. And so I encourage everybody out there that if you ever are a product of divorce, you do a great job and work on co-parenting and make sure that you give your children everything they can to be good citizens when they grow up and be a present father. Don't make any other father look bad. Remember, fathers were on the spotlight. You can't, you have to do your job. Just because you're a father doesn't mean you're a father. A father is somebody that's present. I'm so happy that I'm a present father, and I encourage everybody else out to do that well. And this movie, the short film, gets into father and son relationships. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the young man who wrote that. And I think it won some awards. It won some awards in I think Louisiana won an award, and it should, for screenplays. So we were pushing for that. So I always like young people that are working on films that are trying to get an award because that's true staying power. So
we have a portion of the show, and it's called Totally Random Questions, otherwise known as the TRQ. So, Joe, are you ready for the TRQ?
I am ready for the TRQ.
Totally random questions. Totally random questions.
As we were just listening to you, you've played doctors and cops and mobsters and boxers. Do you prefer heroes or villains?
I prefer both. I love both. I love just being somebody different than myself. But it's got to be extreme. I think you can still be a hero and a villain. So I think sometimes they're almost hand in hand. And so you can be a villain that's really a hero. So I find that those really can be one and the same, that you're a villain and a hero. So I like both. I really do. And I like, crazy enough, I like comedy too. I do. Sometimes I get scripts and I'm like, but then there's times where I know it's like right for me. And it's like, I love when I find something that's like right for me, but I prefer both. But I guess if I had to pick one, it would be the villain.
I always wondered, like, for the actors that play villains, do you like go home saying, like, I got all that aggression out, so I'm like nice and relaxed for the rest of the day, especially like if they're very evil?
That's a good point. I'll tell you what I do. Sometimes I'm going throughout my day and something irritates the hell out of me. And I'm an Italian guy. You're Italian. So we're Italian. Our emotions are on our sleeves. You can tell how we're feeling. And so sometimes when I get really angry about something and it's like, it's so organic. I just think, God, if I just can recall this, I'm going to get an Academy Award because I am so angry that I hope I can use this. But sometimes, yes. But sometimes it's hard to bring that thing. But I try to always use something that really made me angry and bring it back. And I think, that I always turn it to a blessing versus a curse.
In a lot of your movies, I've noticed you must be the king of the 5-day beard. So what's the secret to keeping a good beard like that?
It's so hard. No, that's it. You know what? Thank you for asking me that question. That's a really good question. So, okay, so I work. I'm an actor's actor. I'm what they call a blue collar actor. So I do work on shows that could do well, but I also work on independent projects too. So when you're working on like an independent project, continuity is not always something that some of the younger filmmakers really pay attention to. And so I think it's part of the actor's job to pay attention to continuity. Sometimes you can't help it because you can work on something and you're filming it. Look, it's the same day, but they're filming that a month later, 2 months later. So here's the deal. I know my numbers. It's like a number for cutting my hair. So when I get my hair cut, right before everything, I go get my hair cut to like number 2, like 4 on the side, X amount up top. So I know all my numbers. And then with my beard, I know the numbers too. I've been doing a lot more cop stuff, so I've been trimming it a lot lower. But if I work on something, I know the beard, the number on my trimmer. So I make sure that I continue to use it. So if it is the same day, I know what it is. So I work on the continuity. And I appreciate you noticing that, because that's an actor's job too, to work on his own continuity, not just with his clothing, but with how he looks, haircut, everything. Because to me, the worst thing in the world is you do something and it's the same day and your hair's like an inch longer. Come on. You can't. I think when there's you got to work on no weak links. You got to make sure everything works. Everything's got to be right.
Okay.
So thank you for noticing.
No problem. Now, being half Italian, what goes on your pizza and what doesn't go on your pizza? Or do you just like regular pizza?
Well, that's another good question. I can just deal with just plain old cheese, and I'm good with that. But then I do like pepperoni too. But if I were to go, and when I just go for a pizza, what am I going to pick 98% of the time? Just plain old cheese. Just plain old cheese. Okay. And I'm in heaven. The best pizza in the world is Chicago pizza. Have you ever had pizza in Chicago? The thick pizza in Chicago? Oh my gosh. It's notorious. It's the best pizza in the world. Chicago's pizza. A Chicago pizza. Have that one day. It's insane. But just cheese is the answer to your question.
And you lived in Manhattan, so you've probably had your share of Manhattan pizza as well.
I did. I lived on 23rd Street and Lexington Avenue for almost 9 years.
You were a stand-in for Jason Patrick in the movie Sleepers?
Wow, you saw that. That's great. Good for you. That's way back. Thank you for seeing that too. You know what? I'm going to applaud you for doing your homework. Thank you very much. So I tell you, that was the coolest thing. So back in the very beginning, back in 92, or what year was that? What year the hell was that?
96, I think it was.
96 for that movie? Really? I had an opportunity to be like the double for Jason Patrick in a movie called Sleepers. You know, as actors, I had an opportunity to work on a big budget film. So I took normally I didn't want to do that type of stuff. So I did it once, and I did it to be Jason Patrick's double and stand in for the movie Sleepers. It was actually done by Barry Levinson, which is a Baltimore guy. So I figured I'm at home there. It's great. And I can see back then it was $50 million, which was the biggest thing. $50 million is a lot. Now everything's $150 million. But I thought that's my opportunity to really work in a big budget film. And I was there every single day. And because Jason Patrick was in every single scene. And the cast I worked with it was crazy. Most actors, there's even famous actors that in between acting jobs, they do almost anything to survive. I had a really good friend that was, I would say, movie star, and she would clean houses in between jobs. And then she would star in a big film, and then she would clean houses. So I was doing jobs like that too to survive then. And so one day, and I remember my grandmother never wanted me to do certain jobs. And I remember one day I was like, I prayed. I was like, Grandma, if you don't want me to do this, get me out of here. And I realized I need to start praying more, because sometimes you get what you ask for. But within one day, this is the craziest thing. I was doing something I really wanted to do. One day, they brought me and they said, hey, would you mind wanting to work on this thing for a couple months? You could be Jason Patrick's, if they want you or they hire you, you could be Jason Patrick's double for the whole film. And you'll be employed for a month and a half or whatever. And I'm like, okay. So they go in, and when you get hired, you don't just get hired. You literally have to go on this. We went on this sound stage, and they had me standing there, Jason Patrick. Then there's me, Jason Patrick. Then there was me, Driver. Then there was her, whoever person was going to be her, like double or whatever. Then there's this other fella, blonde dude, and I will tell you who he is. This blonde dude, kind of tall, and he had his person. So we're all like standing there for this movie Sleepers. And so then back then, I quit smoking when my son was born, but back then I smoked. I went outside to grab a smoke because before they kind of bring you on, you just kind of have this like kind of like a meeting to make sure everything matches up and whatever, because there's a lot to do with these big films. And I was outside smoking a cigarette, and now I noticed this kid. I call him a kid, but I found out he's 4 years older than me, I think. And he was a little taller than me. I'm outside, I'm smoking a cigarette, and some guy, and I said dude back then. Some dude walked over to me and he said, "Hey, I'm Brad. How you doing?" It was Brad Pitt. So I was out there smoking. I'm like smoking a cigarette with Brad Pitt. He walked over and said, "Hey, I'm Brad. Did you do some stuff to me?" So it was the coolest damn thing. And I ended up working on Sleepers, and it was, Brad Pitt was in there, Minnie Driver, God, the list goes, Billy Crudup, De Niro, Dustin Hoffman. So, and it was, I remember one day it was, I was feeling kind of sorry for myself because, none of my family was in New York, and it was my birthday. And we were doing this courtroom scene, and I'm in there, and I was treated very well, but all around me, I was feeling sorry for myself. And to my right was Dustin Hoffman. To my left was De Niro. Right in front of me was Minnie Driver, Billy Crudup, Jason Patrick, Brad Pitt, all in this like room. And I thought, wow, wait a minute. What a great gift that is to be around this talent. And so that was a cool thing. And I got a chance to work with these people and to see how they actually operate. So for me, it was a great lesson that I was paid to do, to work on a big, huge budget motion picture, to work with Barry Levinson. I talked with Barry because I said, "Hey, I'm from Baltimore." He did a movie called Diner, which was created right where I grew up, the same county. And I talked to him about that. It was so funny. So Barry and I developed, we talked all the time. And in fact, there was a scene that De Niro was doing. Right after De Niro was done, he turned to me, he goes, "Isn't he just amazing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? He's De Niro. Isn't that why you hired him? He's the best. What are you amazed about? He is the best." So he was just so amazed with De Niro's work. I just thought, well, that's what he's supposed to be amazing, right? So anyway, so it was cool. So working on Sleepers was a really cool thing. In fact, I think Dustin Hoffman and De Niro, that was the first thing they ever worked on together. But Dustin Hoffman every day would come to the set, and he'd bring a newspaper, and he would talk about current events. And such a great man. All these people, the whole cast, they're all awesome. But Dustin Hoffman was the coolest. But he would come and talk about different things that were going on in society. He always had something to talk about. So I really learned a lot from Dustin. He was somebody that just didn't walk on set and not say anything. He had things to talk about. It was current events. He was such a great guy.
Before we wrap it up, you've been giving a lot of really good pointers, and we'll have you do one more little public service. So when you were doing Fitness Model, you were in the complete book of abs? Was that true?
Yes. Yes.
So you had a six-pack way back then?
The book of abs, that's true. I did have a six-pack then, yes.
What's your best advice for people who want to keep it nice and trimmed? I mean, you're still looking good and trim it so many years later, too.
I am. I'm addicted to working out. I still try to, but yeah, I was in a book called The Complete Book of Abs. It sold in Barnes & Noble all over the United States. It was selling up until probably 4 years ago. It sold well over 25, 26, 27 years. The book sold. In fact, I would have good friends, and I would go to people's homes, and I would see the book that was there, the book I was in that was there. I was always really proud of that book because it did sell a lot, and it was in, of course, Barnes & Noble for the longest time. But my answer to your question is, when it comes to working out or dieting, my dog's got a little squeaky toy. So when it comes to working out and dieting, to me, and because I've been doing it for so many years, it's really majority of it's diet, watching what you eat. Everything's a science. I think I was talking about karma earlier, but even what you eat is a science. And so to me, I'm kind of the old school thing. I don't think you should go too crazy, but watching, what I do is I watch my carbohydrate intake. I have to have my carbohydrates for breakfast. I have oatmeal still today, and then I have egg whites for breakfast. And then for lunch, I'll have like a baked potato and then veggies and then chicken, meat. I stick with that. And then for dinner, I stay away from starchy carbohydrate. And I still do it. Every once in a while, I cheat. I think areas you cheat are a little bit of wine. That's cheating. But I try to stick to it all the time. And sometimes people say, just have one chip or have one thing. And I'm like, no, because once I have one, there's an addiction that takes place where you can't stop. So I'd rather just say no and not have any. And I've stuck to that since I was in my 20s, and I'm still in good shape. It's kind of a weird phenomenon, but for some reason mentally, I still eat like as if, because my buddies and I that have done fitness stuff or fitness modeling, there's a term that, we're going to eat as if we're X amount of days out from a shoot. So I used to always say, well, I'm 3 weeks out, and I'm 51, and I'm like, well, I eat as if I'm like 3 weeks out from being on a fitness magazine photo shoot, or if I got to do whatever. So I eat as if I'm 3 weeks out, and it's, you don't want to go too crazy, and you have to have a cheat day. But for the most part, it's something that I do every day, religiously. I don't, and everybody in my family knows that don't give me bread. I'm not going to eat bread. Don't give me rice. I'm going to have rice maybe for, a little bit for lunch, but it's not going to be something I'm going to have for dinner. Mm-hmm. I try to watch it to this day. So it's something that I still do now. And it's kind of the whole package because it makes me feel good. And if I do cheat, I feel so guilty that my brain doesn't let me cheat. I did, my last calendar I did was in 2016. So I think I was like 36 years old. So it was 2016. How many years ago was that? It wasn't that long ago.
4 years ago.
And 2006. Oh. 2006. Oh. So this is my last calendar. So I was the oldest guy by 14 years ago. 2006 was my last calendar. So I did in my late 30s. I was able to do a calendar. So, but we're still watching it. Yeah, that's it. Watching your carbs.
Are there any other projects coming up that we have to keep our eye out for you that we haven't done?
Yeah, there's some of the things. Well, again, it's, there'll be a diaries on Amazon. Watch that. One of the shows I'm proud of and I like is a TV show called Betrayed. That's actually on Amazon as well. It really aired on ID Discovery about 3 weeks ago, but you can look at, I'm in episode, I think 4, and it's called, Betrayed. So you can watch that. That's on Amazon now. And then I got something coming out, which is really cool. And I think there's what the production company has one more day of filming, but it's something to be able to look out for. It's called Cholo Zombies. And it's about a zombie epidemic, kind of like the epidemic we have now. It's crazy because I started filming this thing. It's called Cholo Zombies about 7, 8, well before the epidemic happened. And I play a reporter, and I'm doing this reporting, and it's so weird that what's going on now, because it's so weird, very serendipity that I'm talking about it. But I play a reporter, and my reporter name is Wolf Cooper. I married Wolf Blitzer and Anderson Cooper. And I decided to make myself, that was my reporter name. And I talk about this Cholo zombie epidemic. That's going to be real exciting to watch. And I think that's being pitched to a couple of people to make it into a series as well. But the film is pretty much done. There's like 1 day of filming yet to do. And then it's going to be hitting, it'll be 2020. It should hit this year or very beginning of 2021. But it's a cool little comedy, and be on the lookout for that because that'll be pretty darn fun to see. And that's also by Peter Bollinger, who's that guy to look out for. But yeah, that's something to look out for.
He's everywhere, so we will keep an eye open for him. Yeah, Joe Finfera, thank you so much for coming on down to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Joe Finfera for coming on down to the Sherpa Chalet for the interview. Keep an eye open for his work and all of the work of the other guests that we've had this week. You can follow this show on social media, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook by just looking up one word, and that one word, Sherpalution. You knew that, right? Yes. And if you're not listening to this show on your favorite podcast app, what's the name of the website that you can take a look at? Sherpalution.com, of course. And then you can hear every episode from the beginning right up till now. And in the future, even when I've stopped recording, the shows will just keep coming. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm just babbling away. So next week, we will be back with Too Many Podcasts and my friend Jared, who hosts Starve the Doubts. And I was lucky enough to be on Jared's show, and he returned the favor by coming on my show, and we had a blast talking to each other and about our shows. So make sure you check it out and spread the word, okay? Maybe share this episode on social media with some of your friends, and leave a nice review for me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or iHeartRadio. That would be really nice. Now, let's turn it over to a guy who's got a 12-pack of Fosters. Mr. Bruce, if you don't mind, if you could please show everyone the door. No, I know they don't probably drink Fosters in Australia. They think that's just it's Australian for beer, mate. I know that doesn't really happen. Okay, Mr. Bruce, anyway, you know the drill. Hey, bye, everybody. Viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpalu Studios production. Viva la Sherpalution!